Gosh. What am I supposed to do?
What is he? Okay, good morning everybody. This is Jean here. This is my son.
I'm Jean-Pierre.
This is, you're not Jean-Pierre. This is Niles, our son. Oh, watch the hair. Niles came into my sewing room to do what?
To show the block party.
That's right. And what is it?
Jean's block party. Block 3, block 4.
Block 3 and block 4, everybody.
Block 3 and block 4.
Okay, and Niles is going to hold up block 3 and block 4. This is Jean's block party 2019. And this is the block. And what is it, Niles? What is it? It's a
block.
It's a block. It's a 4 patch, but with a little bit of a twist. As you can see, this is block number, actually this is block number 4. This is block number 3. Stop.
Oh yeah, here's block 3.
This is block number 3.
Don't get them mixed up. This is block 3.
This is block 3.
Kind of conventional, you know, there's 3 here inside of the 4 blocks, so that's why we call it the block 3.
Block 4, it's a 4 patch.
It's a 4 patch.
It's a 4 patch. And this week what we're going to be doing is, I'm just concentrating on a 4 patch, but I just wanted to tell you last night I got a few comments from last week's video about the 1/4 inch seam. I'm an experienced quilter, and I reiterate all the time how important a 1/4 inch seam is, right?
It's so important.
It's so important, Niles.
It's so important.
It really is. Do you have any idea why it's so important?
Because the 1/4 inch seam, if it's any bigger or smaller, it's just, I don't know.
It's not right. Exactly.
It's not right.
So exactly, not what Niles is saying is exactly right. But every machine, you have to know, every machine is different. And I was sort of remiss in saying this last week, that every machine is different, and each machine, if you change up machines, then you're going to have to find your 1/4 inch. You can mark on when you find it, literally measuring from your needle to the plate where your 1/4 inch. A lot of people maybe put 2 or 3 layers of painter's tape to add like a ledge. So the 1/4 inch seam, and I was, as I said, I was a bit remiss in emphasizing why it's important to be consistent with that 1/4 inch seam and to find your 1/4 inch seam. So this is our block party, our 2 blocks this week. I want to thank my Niles for coming into our sewing room. And
I did this completely voluntarily.
He did. He wanted to come into my sewing room to be on film.
Oh, yeah?
So you've met, let's see, you've met Malia, you've met Niles, you've met some of our grandchildren, you've met Maxwell, you've met Elliot, you've met my husband. So we only have about
a few left.
About 30 Trueloves left.
And no matter what anybody says, I am the favorite. I'm number 9.
He's number 9.
And
oh no! Here comes number. What number are you?
5.
Here comes number 5. Here's my
number
Elliot.
5. Number 9
is
the best.
Who's my favorite?
Who's giving you the least amount of issues?
Probably Elliot.
Probably me or Maxwell.
He's such a punk. Anyway, these are our blocks. Have a good one. The tutorials to follow. Okay. See ya. So after I've reiterated how important your 1/4 inch seam is, we're going to cut our next block. Just a little thing at the side. Here's my 2 blocks from last week. I'd like to keep everything together in a package. It could be a carrier bag or a little decorative basket, but it's nice to have your project to hand. Even putting, for this one, I put my 9.5 inch ruler in there. I quite like doing it to keep myself organized. And then I can just take everything back. Don't have to be searching for fabrics. So this block consists of, we will be cutting from, I'm using 10-inch squares for this block here. And again, you know how I like to use my 2 rulers. Other people do it the other ways. I see a lot of people cutting the fabric is this way. I've always had my fabric that way, and then I butt my rulers up. I quite like it. Now, as you know, as I said last week, all fabric manufacturers cut their fabrics differently. This is a laundry basket quilts packet that I'm using here, and it's has a pinked edge, and I go to the top of the pinked edge. It's just a hair. I know a lot of people get annoyed. I don't get annoyed. There's other things to get annoyed at in life rather than a pinked edge. So it's just literally a hair. I don't go in the valley, I go to the top. So I'm wanting to cut from this 10-inch square 2 5-inch square pieces, just like we did last week for our 4-patch. And in essence, this week we're making another 4-patch with a twist. Again, I use my 2 rulers. I find my 5-inch line exactly. I take my other ruler here. I line it up exactly. I find my 5-inch line. And I like it that I can see my marking from top to bottom of my piece of fabric. I hold my ruler. Again, cannot tell you how important rotary cutting. A lot of people put their little finger off of the ruler and onto the fabric. Just slowly, firmly, not pushing. Sometimes I see my videos and it looks like I'm really pushing. I'm not. I'm using a rotary cutter firmly and slowly but surely opening and closing it. So now I take, there's my 5-inch. I know that's perfect. Keep my fingers out of the way. Hold my ruler firmly. Slowly, and I shut it. So I'll save that for later. I come around and I want 2 5-inch squares. Butt my ruler up to the edge of that pink square, find my 5-inch here. I'm checking on both sides. My 5-inch there, my 5-inch there. Open my cutter. 2 5-inch squares. Now, out of this fabric, out of these fabrics, I need two 5-inch squares of this fabric, but 4 5-inch squares of that fabric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut I'm going to scratch them together perfectly. I'm going to find my line. Again, this is a Martelli cutting mat, which I find the lines beautiful. I just find the lines beautiful to square up. As you see, I use all my rulers to do that. But it's lovely to find a line. Just so, I mean, you can cut it wonky, but this is nice. So now I'm going to take my ruler here, and I'm going to cut out of these 2 fabrics on top of each other. I'm going to cut 2-inch strips. So I find my 2-inch, 1 2. I find my 2-inch strip, the edge of my pinked edges. Put my ruler down. It's nice and lined up right there. My 2-inch strip. Let me just pull this down so I get my whole ruler on it. My 2-inch line. Measure twice. Cut once. Open. Shut. Okay. So now I need 1 more strip here. A 2-inch strip. We're going to subcut. This is called, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be subcutting this unit here. So I find my 2-inch strip, because I need 2 of these. Now, we have, oh, excuse me. Oh, no, that's right. I got confused there for a second. So now what we're going to do is I'm just going to butt these up. We're going to cut these 3 strips. I'm lining them up like that. We're going to cut these into 5 inches. So we end up with these strips that are 2 by 5. There's my 5-inch. There's a 5-inch. I don't really need it because it's above here, but I'm looking here to make sure everything's nice and square. Hold my ruler, open up my cutter. There we go. Now, like we did last week, we can put our blocks together. What it will sort of look like. So what we're aiming for is this look. It's a 4-patch. Oh, it's delightful. But now, what is the trick? We obviously have to sew this unit together and this unit together. I'll take you over to my machine. Well, actually, no, what I'll do is I'll get my pins. Look, folks, I'm using pins. People say I never use pins. I don't usually, but as a beginner, obviously, you want to start using pins. So again, this is what our block's going to look like. Awesome, super. There is a way that you could have made this long, like it's called it's like a strip method. But for now, we'll probably get into that later on in the tutorials. But for now, we're going to do each block separately. I think you should learn the basics. There's all sorts of speedy ways to make things go quicker. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to take this unit here. We're going to go just like we did with the other one. We're going to do pretty side, the right sides of the fabric. You want to flip it over to there, and you're going to pin. And then you're going to go over to your machine, and you're going to sew that stitch, that seam. And then you're going to do the exact same thing with this one. Scratch them together, and you're going to do a perfect 1/4 inch. You have found your 1/4 inch. So I'm going to do this one. I'm going to flip that over, pretty side, right side to right side. And then come over to this one, right side to right side. And then I'll put my camera up, and you can see how I'll stitch them. So again, I'm putting my presser foot down, and if you need your leader, remember we've discussed that. And I'll just start along there, and I'm doing a perfect 1/4 inch seam, keeping this one out of the way. And as I do that one, I can just bring this one over, sort of lift my presser foot up carefully, slowly. And just do right along a 1/4 inch seam. And then right off. And then I just turn the lot around. I wouldn't have even had to cut them apart, but that's okay. Everybody's like, why don't you use your automatic cutter? Why don't you use your automatic? I tried it, and it kept, I don't know if it's my machine, but it made my cuts too small. And I don't know, the next time I went to do it with on thread, I'm like, forget that. I'm just like, it takes me 2 seconds with my scissors. And so many people say, you have all of these incredible machines, why don't you use them all? I'm like, I don't know. So there you go. So, right off. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over to my ironing board. I'm going to press these. I'm going to press these seams to the dark side. Now, is it interesting? If you can see that, the seams sort of want to go to the dark side. So I'll just press them to the dark side. Now this, we're not nesting anything together, okay? As you saw in my block. So I can press both these units exactly the same, and then I'll be back and show you how we do the 4-patch. So I've gone over, I've set my seam, I've pressed it really nice. I've not distorted anything. They're lovely and square. Now, sometimes when, and again, as the tutorials get on, there's something as such as, it's called squaring up your block. These are pretty much how I want them to be. These are pretty much 5 inches square. They're 5 inches square. But sometimes they might be just a hair, a thread off. And you would take your rotary cutter, you would like, oh, in fact, this one I might just be able to, this is for you purists out there, that little slice. Now, you see that little bit right there? Now, this is perfectly 5 inches square. There's just a thread, but sometimes that little thread, now this one is absolutely perfect, makes a world of difference. So that's called squaring up your blocks, but I'll get into that more in depth later when we're working with a few more units. Now we just put our block together. What is this? This is a simple 4-patch block with a variation. So I want this one up there, and there's no rhyme or reason to the pattern, although I do. There's the pattern going that way. I'll have it going that way. And this one I think maybe that way. This one goes over here. And do I want that way? Or you can change it up. I think I want it that way. Makes it a little bit more interesting. So now what do we have? We have a simple 4-patch block, but we've used 3 different fabrics. Now again, what are we going to do? You're going to bring your pretty side to over here. Line that up. However you pin. Sometimes I go that way. I don't know. I don't pin, so I'm trying to do this for you beginners. And then this one over here. So this one will be no seams. This one you'll be sewing through seams, which is fine. Scratch them together. And then I'll be back having sewn this center seam down. So here's my block that I've gone over. I've sewn this center seam down, and I've pressed this to the dark side, to this piece of fabric here, and this one to this piece of fabric, just like we did last week. Now you're going to turn this one over, right sides together, and if you have perfected your 1/4 inch seam, what's going to happen? It's going to, this seam here in the middle is going to nest beautifully. It's going to nest beautifully. One's going one way, the bottom's going the other way. You match that up, you can feel it. I put a pin there, and then I'm going to go over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew this center seam down, and our block will be finished. So there is my finished block. Oh, I think it's so pretty. I like this fabric. This fabric line is a little bit more cream and a muted maroon as opposed to the bright red and white, but I think it'll add a lot of movement and texture to my quilt. I have bright reds and darker reds, and I'll have creams and I'll have whites, so it'll be very pretty. So there's my block. It's so super. Oh, the litmus test. I hope it's good. Look at that. Perfect 9.5 inches square. Perfect 9.5 inches square. I keep reiterating about the 1/4 inch seam because and your ruler work and your cutting work and your pins, because if you're beginners, you want to lay down some good habits. You can very quickly get into a bad habit, and things just don't turn out quite as good. And so I keep saying, with the ironing, with the setting your seam, you have a perfect block. So there's our next block, and onto another one. These are the fabrics I've chosen for our second block this week. And what we're going to do is as you've seen, we've done variations on our 4-patch, which is a simple basic block for beginners. But this one I've changed it up. I've pulled from this is my Sew Ruby Riley Blake pattern by Karina Gardner. This is my line of fabric here. Again, it's a little bit brighter. Now for this one, all we're doing are 4 patches. But as you saw, hopefully it turns out, as you saw, we're doing 4 patches in a 4-patch. This is sort of like a rail fence, it's called, in a 4-patch, but this is a 4-patch in a 4-patch. Now what we want to have here with our 2 pieces of fabric, again, they're scratched together. They're scratched together here from our 10-inch square. I've lined it all up nice and neat. Get my rulers. I want to cut from the 2 pieces. I want to cut 4 pieces of fabric here. Now this piece of fabric, I want to cut 2 3/4 inches wide. And again, if you're not familiar with your markings on your ruler, 2 3/4 inches. Most rulers are 1 inch, and they mark the 1/4 inch, the 1/2 inch, and the 3/4 inch mark, which is the line right before, or 2 lines right before your 3 inch. That's 2 3/4 of an inch. So I want 2 3/4 inch strips. I'm lining my 2 3/4 inch line very carefully to the outside of my pinked edge, checking it twice through 2-3 times, going all the way up, 2 3/4, holding my ruler tightly. I'm cutting through 2 pieces of fabric. Now I'm going to do that again because I need 4 of them. So I'm finding my 2 3/4, 2 3/4, go all the way up, 2 3/4. Oh, oops, bring this down because my ruler wasn't long enough. Hold on. Find it again. 2 3/4. 2 3/4. Very, very important. You go slowly. Did that shift? I'm having trouble here. No, it didn't. Oh yeah, it did shift. It just shifted slightly when I took my hand off it. So there you go. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these 4 pieces. I'm going to cut these 4 pieces, line them up, scratch them together. I'm going to cut these 4 pieces. Let me see. 2 3/4. Oh no! I want these 4 pieces. I want squares. I want squares of 2 3/4 inches. So I find my 2 3/4 inch. There's 4 of them there. There's my 2 3/4 inch there. So I have a nice square. And then I'm going to do that again. Find my 2 3/4, my 2 3/4. And I have now exactly what I want. So now I'm going to take this piece of fabric and I'm going to cut it in half again. And I want 2 5-inch squares out of this piece of fabric. Basic 4 patch, you're going to get sick of it. But as I was saying in the beginning, you're not putting each one of these blocks right next to each other. Remember, we're changing it all up. We're changing it up. Your quilt's going to be your quilt, and my quilt's going to be my quilt. However you want to put the blocks. It's not like block 1, block 2, block 3, block 4 goes in a row. Jen, that was funny when Jen said that. And I'm like, no. So here we go. So I have our blocks here. Now, again, what do I always do? I'll put this, I'll do it that way. What we're going to do is we're going to just make a simple 4 patch in a 4 patch. Going to do lots of matching up seams. It's a good exercise, isn't it? So now, there's my block. There's my block, an interesting block. You could do the white, doesn't matter how you do it. You can change it up, however. But right now, I'm not gonna bore you. Because you know how to do this now. I'm gonna make this 4 patch. Forget these. I'm gonna concentrate on this one. I'm gonna put the right side over there. You're working with smaller units. You're working with smaller units, and you're like, oh, but you can do this. Very important. What? 1/4 inch seam. Put this one over there. Match it up. 1/4 inch seam. Very, very careful, especially when you're working on smaller units. So I've got that one. Then I'm going to do this one. I'm going to take them over to my sewing machine. I'm going to sew them. Right sides together. So we are doing tons of 4 patches this week. It's a 4 patch week. So I'm going to take these units over, and then I'll be back, and then we'll put the rest of the block together. I've sewn these center seams together, and what have I done? I've set my seam. I've pressed over to the dark side on each one of these blocks here. So now it's exactly the same. We're just doing 4 patches galore. You're going to bring this right side down over here, and since you've sewn it perfectly, your seam is going to nest just beautifully. You're going to put a pin in there, scratch them together, and you're going to sew your 1/4 inch just like that. And then we're going to come back and we're just going to do the exact same thing. This unit will go to this side, this unit will go to this side, and then we'll sew the center seams together. So I've ironed these down, and you will say, oh, well, you know, again, how do I know where to press this? You know, it's light and dark. So wherever the fabric wants to tell you, obviously you're going to be pressing some of it to the light side. Don't worry about that. So here are our units right now, and what am I going to do to finish it? I'm going to take this one over here, pretty sides together, this one over here, pretty sides together, make sure I pin, and I'm going to do this 1/4 inch seam here, and then I'm going to finish it up by doing this center seam here, and we will have our finished block. So I've sewn this seam, I've pressed this to the dark side, I'll press this to the dark side, and then we finish up by nesting our center seam together, pinning it, and sewing that center seam right along the edge there. Scratch it together and right along this edge here, having pinned it. And then you're going to set the seam, and then you're going to press it open, and again wherever the seam wants to go, and there will be your block. So here's my finished block, my 4-patch in a 4-patch. So we've made 2 4-patch blocks. Where's my ruler? Oh, here it is. So here's a ta-da moment. And look at that. There's just one little thread, which I'm going to trim. I'm going to show you. There's just one little thread. I'm so not a perfectionist, but like it looks like I am. But like if you're going to do it, I just want to show you. This is called squaring up your block. So look at that. Just that little thread there. Oh my word. Anyway, there are 2 blocks. Look at that. I've put my directions here on this one, so you can like pause it and you can see exactly what to cut. But there are our 2 blocks for the week. Look at that. So we have our 4. I won't be able to do this each week, but we have our 4 blocks that we've made. This one looks very similar. We've done 4 patches and 9 patches. But you can see that, you can see how pretty, And again, if you're using scraps, if you're using 2 colors, oh, what a pretty quilt. And then we will be punctuating this with a little bit of sashing, just to give it a little bit of relief, but that's at the end of a million years. So here we go. These are our blocks we've made. These are our 2 blocks. I do hope you love them. I'll put the cutting directions up now for this. I think they're delightful. Okay, folks, thanks again for following along, and I will see you. Bye.